After years of being the invisible child, I lied about attending a local college and built a new life. When my family begged me back, I reminded them I was never really theirs to begin with. The morning my father called to say Roman was getting married, I felt nothing. No joy, no resentment, just a weird, numb kind of silence. The same way you'd feel staring at the empty space where a family photo should be. He said I had to come home. Said Roman needed me. Said family sticks together. But this was the same man who once told me to dim my future so Roman wouldn't feel less than. He had meant it, too. Told me straight-faced that going to a prestigious college would upset the balance of the family. I still remember sitting there at the dinner table, mouth open, fork midair, while he muttered something about how my acceptance letter to Northridge Hamilton, a school with a 7% acceptance rate, was great and all, but I'd be attending Riverside local so Roman wouldn't feel bad. Because Roman, the academically disinterested golden boy, might get insecure. So I said fine. I told him I'd go to Riverside local, but only if I could stay in the dorms. He agreed too easily, which made it even sweeter when I packed my bags and moved 3 states away to the school of my dreams. On a scholarship I earned with blood and insomnia and AP classes while Roman was out getting stoned behind the gym. I lied. I told him I was staying in dorms at Riverside, when really, I was studying global finance at Northridge. He sent me money every month for textbooks and food, and I used it, alongside my scholarship, to live. But let me back up. My name's Jonas, and I'm the family background prop. Not the second child. Not the shy one. The invisible one. If Roman was the sun, I was the bit of dust floating through a sunbeam, only visible if you squinted. From the very beginning, Roman got everything. The hugs, the praise, the stupid magnet on the fridge for every messy drawing he did. I once got straight A's on a 3rd grade report card, showed it to my mom, and she said, "That's good," without even looking up from the macaroni Roman was finger painting. Then she put his dog with 4 legs on one side of its body, masterpiece front and center on the fridge. My report card? I found it in the drawer next to expired coupons. It was always like that. Roman chose where we vacationed, what shows we watched, even what snacks were in the pantry. I once asked for peanut butter crackers and got laughed at because Roman didn't like them. And God forbid I have a preference. Roman didn't just hog the spotlight, he guarded it. If I had friends over, he'd find a way to ruin it. If I mentioned liking a girl, he'd flirt with her until she ghosted me. If I bought a shirt I liked, he'd wear it as a joke and spill ketchup on it. He was the kind of little brother who tricked you on purpose, then acted like you were the idiot for falling. And my parents? They enabled every bit of it. He's just a kid, they'd say. Boys will be boys. Meanwhile, I was the punching bag, the plan B, the afterthought. You know what hurts the most? They weren't even evil, just willfully blind. As if loving Roman with everything they had somehow justified having nothing left for me. So yeah, when my dad called after 3 years of radio silence to say I had to attend Roman's wedding, and that if I didn't, they'd stop paying my tuition, I nearly laughed. Because here's the twist. I make more than my father now. 6 figures. At 23. Full-time job. Promotion coming. And I did it all without them. They have no idea. But they're about to. You ever pretend to be someone so long that even your own reflection starts to believe it? That's how those first few months at Northridge Hamilton felt. Every time I stepped onto campus with my ID badge, walked past marble lecture halls, or sat in a finance lab where kids talked about hedge funds like they were sports scores, I felt like I'd snuck in through the service entrance. Like at any moment, someone would tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Jonas, we found out. Back to the local college you go." But no one did. Because I wasn't some fluke. I had earned this. Even if my family would never admit it. I was the kid who studied under flashlight while Roman screamed over Xbox in the next room. I was the one who worked weekends at the hardware store while Roman got $100 for emergencies every time he asked. I fought to carve a future out of the silence they buried me in. So when I told my parents I'd reluctantly agree to attend Riverside if they let me stay in the dorms, it was already decided. They didn't know that Northridge had offered me a partial scholarship. Didn't know that dorm fees were included. Didn't know I was already accepted and enrolled and packing my bags before they even handed me the check for textbooks. When I moved into my tiny campus apartment 3 states away, I felt something crack loose in my chest. Freedom, maybe. Or grief. I remember standing in front of the mirror and whispering out loud, You made it. I didn't post photos. Didn't text them updates. Every so often, I'd send a generic message. Classes are hard, but I'm managing. Just to keep up the illusion. I called during holidays. Went home maybe once or twice a year. Pretended I was just super busy with midterms whenever they asked why I was distant. They didn't ask often. That should have hurt more than it did. But here's the thing, I was thriving. The professors at Northridge saw me. For the first time in my life, someone noticed when I did something well. They asked questions, encouraged me to apply for internships, told me I had a sharp mind for numbers and policy. One professor even nominated me for a student economic think tank. I didn't tell anyone in my family, of course. Why would I? By my second year, I was already working part-time for a global investment firm. One of those places where people wear tailored suits and say things like, diversify the portfolio, in coffee shops. The guy who hired me said I had a killer instinct for data patterns. I smiled and told him I'd learned to pay attention to details growing up. Didn't mention it was because I had to spot Roman's mood before it ruined my whole day. By the time I graduated, early, mind you, I was offered a six-figure contract with full benefits and a fast track to management. I used part of the money my father still sent me each semester to buy a better laptop and get therapy. The rest I saved. There was this one moment, just after signing my first lease, a sleek loft with floor-to-ceiling windows, where I opened a bottle of ginger ale and stood by the glass, staring down at the city. I texted my dad that I was studying late and smiled to myself. They had no clue. But underneath the satisfaction was something heavier. Not guilt. Just silence. I should have felt proud. Instead, I kept thinking how none of it mattered to the people who raised me. If Roman had done even half of what I'd accomplished, there'd be a banner on the garage. A Facebook album called My Baby, the Finance Prodigy. Me? I could win a Nobel, and they'd probably ask if Roman was okay with it. So when my father called that day, after 3 years of barely remembering I existed, asking me to come be a family again for Roman's wedding, I didn't feel touched. I felt used. Because I wasn't the son they missed. I was the decoration they needed. The missing puzzle piece that made their image look whole again. And I was about to shatter that illusion into 1,000 tiny, jagged pieces. When I was 8, I watched my mother throw away my report card. Not because it was bad. In fact, it was perfect. Straight A's, a handwritten note from Mrs. Henson saying I had a mind beyond his years. I had waited all day to show her. Tucked it carefully into my backpack. Smoothed the edges with my sleeve. Imagine her reaction 100 times. I stood there in the kitchen, the scent of spaghetti sauce thick in the air, and handed it to her with this wide, stupid grin. She glanced down, said, "That's good," then turned and fished out Roman's painting, a wonky, finger-smeared dog with 4 legs coming out of one side of its body, and stuck it on the fridge with a glittery magnet that said Number 1 Son. My report card? She placed it on the counter. Later that night, I saw it in the drawer where coupons go to die, next to expired spaghetti vouchers and mystery appliance manuals. That was the first time I understood what it meant to be invisible, and maybe I never quite shook it off. Because when my dad called me to say I had to attend Roman's wedding or he'd reconsider supporting my education, that feeling came roaring back. The same bone-deep hollowness. Like I was 8 again, standing in the kitchen with an armful of invisible achievements. Only this time, I wasn't powerless. "You want me there?" I said. "Fine. But I'm not coming to play background prop while Roman gets his gold-trimmed fairy tale." My father was quiet for a beat. Then came the manipulation. "Young man, you've been away too long. It's time to remember where you came from. If you don't show up, I'm cutting off your tuition." Final warning. Tuition. The same tuition I hadn't needed in over a year. The same money I now earned in a week of consulting work. I almost thanked him for the threat. It gave me an excuse. "Do what you have to," I said calmly. "But I'm not coming." Click. I half expected him to call back and scream. Instead, it was my mother who started texting. Messages like, "Roman's going to be devastated. Don't be selfish. It's just one day. You only get one family." One family. God, that line. Like I hadn't spent 23 years being the placeholder child while they worshipped at the altar of Roman's mediocrity. They wanted me there to complete the image. A smiling, successful older brother. Polished shoes. Handshake at the altar. Family photo by the garden arch. A real-life refrigerator magnet moment. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I'd peeled myself off that damn fridge and build a life from the crumbs they never noticed. So I replied once, just once, "I'm not coming. Please don't contact me again." No apologies. No explanations. No pretending. That was when my father decided to go nuclear. 2 days later, he walked into Riverside Local College and tried to withdraw me from enrollment. Just strolled into the administration office like he still had control over my life. They told him they had no record of a Jonas Mercer. He called me an hour later, his voice shaking with rage. "Where the hell have you been?" he barked. "What have you been doing with the money I sent?" I pictured him standing in that registrar's office, cheeks red, fists clenched, being told his son didn't exist there. Imagine the cold clarity of that moment washing over him like a slap. I laughed. Then, for the first time in years, I told him the truth. I told him I'd graduated a year ago. Told him I had a 6-figure salary, a high-rise apartment, and a life he knew nothing about. I told him I'd used his tuition checks to survive while I chased something bigger than the small, obedient life they wanted for me. He was silent. Then he exploded, called me a traitor, said I'd embarrassed the family, that I'd built my success on lies and disrespect, that unless I showed up to Roman's wedding and made it right, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. I hung up while he was still yelling, because here's what he'll never understand. When you've been invisible your whole life, there's something sacred about finally being seen, even if it's just by yourself. That's what they never gave me. That's what I gave myself. And no wedding, no threat, no sob story will take that away. The storm hit a week after I blocked their numbers. Not the weather kind. The kind where years of carefully constructed lies collapse under the weight of their own arrogance. It started with a call from my aunt, Mom's sister, the only relative who ever treated me like I was more than just Roman's understudy. I hadn't spoken to her in months, so I almost didn't answer. But something made me swipe right. She was whispering like someone might be listening. "Jonas, your parents. You haven't heard?" My stomach dropped. The story poured out like a pipe burst. Roman's wedding had been canceled. Not postponed. Canceled. The bride? Gone. Took their money, every cent, and disappeared. Turns out she wasn't just his fiancée. She was also a con artist. A really good one. Had them all wrapped around her French manicured finger, promising some miraculous, once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. My parents fell for it. So did some cousins. Even Roman, the star quarterback of delusion. Gone. Wiped out. No wedding, no money, no explanation. Just a half-written checkbook, a canceled venue, and a 3-tier cake sitting in someone's garage. I sat down on the edge of my bed and laughed until I couldn't breathe. Because that wasn't the best part. The best part? My father's business, already on life support, had flatlined. Apparently, he got into a shouting match with a client's son, and the fallout cost him a contract that made up 40% of his annual revenue. They had used the house as collateral to try to stay afloat. It didn't work. Now they were living in a 1-bedroom rental the size of a walk-in closet. Their golden child had sunk the ship, and suddenly, they remembered they had another son. Cue the tears, the desperation, the phone calls from blocked numbers, the email from my mother, subject line, "We miss you." It was like watching a stage collapse during the final act. The spotlights crash down, the set pieces shatter, and the cast, dazed, turns to the one guy they left in the wings. Only I wasn't backstage anymore. I was in the audience, arms crossed, watching the play burn. But still, part of me wanted to believe it. That maybe, just maybe, they missed me. Missed me, not just the idea of me. Not the pawn, not the prop, not the last-ditch ATM in a button-up shirt. Then they showed up at my apartment. I don't know how they got the address. I suspect one of my old classmates ratted me out, probably under the guise of "they're your parents, man." But there they were, standing outside my door like a pair of weathered ghosts. My father looked thinner. My mother looked older. But their words were the same. "Family matters more than pride, Jonas," my father said, eyes darting past me to the apartment behind. "We made mistakes, but we need you now." He actually said it like that. "We need you now. Not we love you. Not we're sorry. We need you." And that's when I knew. They weren't here because they'd changed. They were here because their safety net had a 6-figure salary and a functioning spine. They wanted me back because Roman had finally failed them. I slammed the door in their faces without a word. But it didn't stop there. 3 days later, Roman came knocking. I recognized his voice through the door before I even checked the peephole. "Jonas, come on, man. I messed up, I know. I need help." The sound of his voice asking me for help should have been satisfying, but all I felt was pity. The kind you feel when a man builds his life out of mirrors and finally realizes he's never seen anything real. "I missed having a big brother," he said through the door. A line so rehearsed it didn't even sting. "You were never a brother," I replied. "You were a parasite with a fan club." He tried to protest. Said Mom and Dad were cutting him off. Said he was all alone. I didn't care. Not when I remembered the times he stole my friends. The times he humiliated me in front of family. The time he convinced our parents not to let me attend the school of my dreams because it would make him look bad. I told him if any of them came back, I'd call the police. And then I locked the door. This time, permanently. When I think about Roman now, I don't feel rage. I don't feel sympathy either. I feel distance. Not the kind that miles create, but the kind that forms when you realize someone was never walking beside you. They were walking on you. Roman was never a brother. He was a story my parents told themselves to feel successful. And I was just the redacted footnote. But here's the twist. I was the one who made it. I didn't send them that final email to rub it in. I wrote it because I needed to be done. For real. No more waiting for apologies that'll never come. No more hoping that my success might buy their respect. The email was short. One paragraph. "I hope you find peace. But I'm not your fallback plan. I'm not your emergency contact. And I'm not your son, not in the way you chose to define it. I forgive you, but I won't forget. Please don't reach out again." They never replied. And yet, I still imagine the scene. My father reading it, jaw tight, pride wounded. My mother maybe crying, or maybe just slamming her laptop shut. Roman pacing, calling them dramatic, blaming everyone but himself. That's the tragedy, isn't it? They built their entire lives around the idea that one son was worth the world and the other was expendable. Now, their golden son is broke, bitter, and blocked from my door. Their overlooked one. Thriving. Whole. Unreachable. A month after that email, I got promoted. They flew me out to Zurich to present to a boardroom full of stone-faced investors. I stood there, in a suit that cost more than my parents' monthly mortgage used to, and talked about portfolio diversification with a calm I didn't know I had. After the meeting, my boss said, "You're scary good. Remind me again, what college did you say you went to?" I smiled. "Northridge Hamilton." He raised an eyebrow. "Good school. Tough to get in." "Yeah," I said. "Tough to stay too. But worth it." On the flight home, I thought about my family. About how silence used to be my cage. Now it's my boundary. Let me be very clear, I don't hate them. Hate is a weight I've dropped. It served its purpose. It fueled my scholarship essays, my sleepless nights, my 4.0 GPA. But now, I'm full of something else. Peace, maybe. Or satisfaction. Or the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need anyone's approval anymore. I haven't heard from them since that last doorstep confrontation. And if they're smart, they'll stay gone. Because I'm done explaining. I'm done begging to be seen. I'm done pretending that blood is thicker than peace. I am not the son they wanted. I'm the son they didn't deserve.